Am I the asshole for excluding my ex-wife from my trip to Disney World with my sons? I, 42M, am looking for some honest advice on a situation that's been eating away at me. I'm divorced from my ex-wife, 40F, and, to put it bluntly, things between us are still strained. I've tried my best to focus on co-parenting and being a good father to our two sons, 15 million and 13M, but a recent situation has blown up, and I'm starting to wonder if I handled it all wrong. Here's the backstory. My ex-wife and I were married for over a decade. Things were good in the beginning, or at least I thought they were. But after several years, our relationship started to crack, and we eventually divorced 5 years ago after she cheated on me. The divorce itself wasn't just painful, it was a disaster. She blindsided me with the affair, and the fallout was brutal. On top of the emotional toll, the legal proceedings left me in a bad spot financially. My ex ended up with the house, and while I got joint custody of our boys, I had to start from scratch. I spent the first couple of years after the divorce just trying to put my life back together. I was heartbroken, angry, and struggling to make ends meet. I'm a truck driver, and while it pays well, it means I'm on the road a lot. This, unfortunately, means that I don't get to spend as much time with my boys as I'd like. I've always felt guilty about that, being away from them for days or even weeks at a time. When I do get time with them, I try to make every second count. I send them gifts, check in on them when I'm away, and when I'm home, I focus on making the time special. I'm not a perfect dad, but I've tried my best to be present when I can. Now, here's where the current issue starts. I've been on the road almost non-stop for months, and I finally managed to get a whole week off this month. It felt like a golden opportunity to do something special for my boys. They've been talking about going to Disney World for years now, and I've been quietly saving up for the trip whenever I could. It took me a while to save enough, but I finally had the money to take them on a trip they'd never forget. I was beyond excited when I told them about the trip. They were thrilled, jumping around, asking me about rides, and talking about all the things they wanted to do. It was one of those moments as a parent where you just feel like you've hit the mark, you know? I was so happy to give them this experience. Of course, my sons told their mum about the trip. I figured they would, and it didn't bother me at all. They share everything with her, and that's fine. But a day later, I got a call from my ex. At first, she was just asking general questions about the trip, when we were going, where we were staying, that kind of stuff. But then she asked me why I hadn't told her about it earlier. I explained to her that it wasn't really her concern since it was my week with the boys, and I didn't think it was necessary to inform her ahead of time. She seemed annoyed by that, but what happened next is where everything went downhill. She asked, straight up, if she was invited to come along. Now, maybe I should have seen that question coming, but honestly, I hadn't even considered it. In my mind, this trip was something I wanted to do with just my boys. I wanted to have that special father-son time without any complications or awkwardness. So, I told her the truth. No, she wasn't invited. She didn't take that well. She accused me of being petty, saying that I was letting my feelings about our divorce and her cheating cloud my judgment. She said I was excluding her from what could be a family experience, and that it wasn't fair to our sons. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to be mean or hold a grudge. I just wanted to spend this time with my boys, and frankly, the idea of a vacation with my ex-wife sounds like the opposite of relaxing. That's when she hit me with something I didn't expect. You know I can't afford to take them on a trip like this. Now, this part is true. My ex-wife has struggled financially since the divorce, and while I do pay child support, she hasn't been able to take the boys on any big trips. But again, I didn't see this as my responsibility. I worked hard to save up for this trip, and I felt like I had earned the right to take my sons on this vacation without her. So, I told her, if you want to take them on a trip, you can plan your own. This is my week, and I'm taking them. She called me an asshole and said I was being selfish. She hung up on me, and now her family is blowing up my phone, calling me all sorts of names. They say I'm punishing her for the past, that I'm letting my resentment over the cheating ruin what could be a great family memory for our sons. They're saying I'm deliberately excluding her from their lives, and that it's going to hurt the boys in the long run. I'll admit, the guilt is starting to get to me. I don't want to hurt my kids. I've tried my best to make up for the fact that I'm away so much because of my job. But at the same time, I feel like I deserve to have this time with them. I'm the one who's worked hard to save up for this trip, and I don't think it's fair for her to try and guilt-trip me into inviting her along. To be clear, it's not like I'm trying to keep my sons away from their mum. They spend plenty of time with her, and I respect the fact that she's their mother. But I don't think it's unreasonable for me to want to take them on a trip by myself. This is something I've been planning for months, and I don't think I should have to include her just because she can't afford to do the same. On top of that, there's still a lot of resentment between us. I'm not proud of it, but it's there. The way our marriage ended, the cheating, the lies, the way she seemed to move on so quickly, it all still stings. I've tried to be civil for the sake of our boys, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't still hurt by everything that happened. Maybe that's why I'm being so firm about not inviting her. Maybe, deep down, this is about more than just the trip. But even if it is, does that make me an asshole? The more I think about it, the more I wonder if I'm being selfish. Am I putting my own hurt feelings above what's best for my kids? Would it really be so bad to let her come along? Part of me feels like inviting her would just lead to tension and awkwardness, and I don't want to ruin the trip by making things uncomfortable. But the other part of me wonders if I'm depriving my sons of a chance to have a special memory with both of their parents. I've talked to a few friends about this, and their opinions are mixed. Some say I'm completely justified in wanting to take the boys on a trip without my ex, especially considering what she did to me. Others think I should try to be the bigger person and invite her for the sake of the kids, even if it's uncomfortable for me. They argue that our sons might appreciate having both of us there, even if we're not together anymore. To add more context, our divorce was not amicable. She cheated on me with a coworker, and I found out in the most humiliating way possible, through a mutual friend who had seen them out together. It was like a knife to the gut. We had been married for over 10 years, and I thought we were happy. I never suspected a thing. The betrayal was devastating, and the divorce itself was ugly. There were fights over custody, over money, over everything. In the end, she got the house and primary custody of the boys, and I was left trying to rebuild my life from scratch. I threw myself into my work as a way to cope. Becoming a long-haul truck driver gave me the financial stability I needed, but it also kept me on the road for days at a time. I'm not around as much as I'd like to be, and I know that has affected my relationship with my sons. I've missed school events, soccer games, birthdays, things that I can't get back. But I've always tried to make it up to them in whatever way I can, whether it's through gifts or planning special outings when I'm home. This Disney trip felt like a chance to give them something really memorable, something that would make up for all the lost time. And now, my ex is making me feel like I'm being petty for not including her. She says it's unfair to the boys, that I'm depriving them of a family experience. But in my mind, this is about my time with them. I only get a limited amount of time with my sons because of my job, and I don't want to share the time with her, especially after everything that's happened. The boys haven't said anything to me about wanting their mum to come along. They're excited about the trip, and we've been talking about all the rides we want to go on, what shows we want to see, and which characters they want to meet. But now that her family is getting involved, I'm starting to second-guess myself. They're saying that I'm being selfish and that this trip should be about the boys, not about my feelings toward their mum. So now I'm stuck. I don't want to ruin the trip by inviting her and risking tension, but I also don't want my boys to feel like I'm keeping their mum away from them. I've thought about compromising, maybe letting her come for one day or meeting up with her for dinner while we're there, but I'm not sure if that would make things better or worse. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I feel like I'm being torn between wanting to give my kids the best experience possible and wanting to protect myself from more hurt. So, am I the asshole for excluding my ex-wife from this trip? Would I be wrong for standing my ground and keeping this a father-son experience? Or should I suck it up and let her come along for the sake of our boys? I'm really struggling with this, and I could use some perspective.